Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Repeateron, and today we're going to be doing another Killing Floor 2 tier list. With the new weapons out, we are taking a look once again at Medic, and I'll be ranking all their weapons, and Medic actually had quite a few changes in this latest update. So let's talk about each of these, and let me be clear with one thing. If any Medic weapon does get into D tier here, that doesn't really mean that it's a bad weapon, but it may need some improving in my opinion. Every Medic weapon is pretty viable on Medic. That's kind of why you see a pretty wide variety of weapons that Medics use, and all the Medic weapons provide a certain level of utility that is undeniably useful. So let's begin and talk about the first one, which is the Medic Pistol. The Medic Pistol is your starting weapon. It does low damage. It only weighs 1 though, which is a big advantage. And if this was just all weapons considered how good they would be, this one would probably be pretty close to the top, simply because it has so much utility. With 1 weight, you can heal allies with it, and that's great. Its damage is low, but that's not a huge deal when you can still one-shot, headshot small Zeds, which is likely what you're going to be using this on. And it actually does scale incredibly well with upgrades, making it so you can heal much easier. It only then goes up to a weight of 4, which is still extremely lightweight. And its damage is actually doing 60 damage a shot, which is more than most assault rifles. So it's actually not a terrible weapon to be using, and because you can heal with it, I really don't think I can give it anything besides C tier, because even if you just find it laying on the ground, it's still going to be useful, and you're always going to incorporate a Medic Pistol into your loadout if you have 1 additional weight that you can spare, regardless of what class you're playing. So I'm going to put it into C tier, but as a tool, it's definitely S tier because 1 weight for the ability to heal. Then we've got the 9mm pistol. You're going to use this if you run out of bullets with your Medic Pistol, or if you don't want to fully run out of bullets with your Medic Pistol so you can more easily switch back if you want to heal. That's probably the only real reason you're going to use the 9mm. Other than that, it's the same as it is for every other class, and Medic doesn't do that much damage in the first place, so it's not that great. This one is D tier. Same with the Scalpel. The Scalpel is also D tier, because you're just going to use it if you run out of bullets or if you need to block something, and that's really the only use that it's going to get. You don't really get any bonus damage or anything like that when using the knife, and the only bonus that you can get with the knife that's on your perks is going with the level 15 perk for poison, which the knife can inflict poison damage, and so can all of your other guns. Again, it's not something you're going to use unless you absolutely have to. And then we've got the Medic Grenade, which the Medic Grenade is an easy S tier. You can't injure yourself with it. You can apply all of your own buffs to yourself as well as to allies. It does healing over time, it does healing per second, and it stacks the buffs from the Medic on everybody very quickly. It's the best grenade in the game. You can also use it to seep gas through welded doors or closed doors. That's a little trick that you can do with this too. So if somebody welds up a door, throw a grenade at it, and the gas will seep through it, killing pretty much all the small Zeds on the other side of it. It's also really good for killing small Zeds. Our next weapon is the Medic SMG. The Medic SMG is a pretty decent gun right now. It used to be really bad, but right now it's pretty decent. It does enough damage per shot to be one-shot headshotting small Zeds. You can kill medium Zeds pretty quick. It's really bad against large Zeds, and it doesn't scale particularly well. But with a high rate of fire, it being cheap, and you being able to heal with it, it's still pretty useful. As a medic weapon, though, I'm probably going to put this one into C tier. It might even be worse than the Medic Pistol overall, because the Medic Pistol does scale well with upgrades, and the Medic Submachine Gun not as much. But still, it only weighs 3. So it's really easy to fit with pretty much any of your loadouts. Then we've got the Heal Thrower, and the Heal Thrower is an easy S tier. This is 2 healing weapons in 1. You can spray out the healing gas, which can stack buffs on top of allies very quickly, as well as it can heal you if you're using symbiotic healing. You can get the buffs that way. And in secondary fire, fires out healing darts the same way that most of your weapons do. It's 2 healing weapons in 1, and if you can combine it with any of your other weapons, that's probably the most meta setup that you can have for Medic. Just going with the Heal Thrower and then anything else that's 8 weight or less, because this weighs 7, and you can upgrade it if you would like, but the upgrades honestly don't matter all that much because the healing gas isn't going to be doing a ton of damage anyway. You're likely going to be using it against small enemies, or if big enemies just get in your way, or to heal allies. And the healing dart reduction on it doesn't really matter all that much. You could upgrade it if you would like to, but it doesn't need it. And then we've got the Medic Shotgun. The Medic Shotgun's fantastic too. High damage, high rate of fire, pretty large magazine. You can also reload it very quickly, and it's very accurate for a shotgun. It does less damage than other shotguns. It's comparatively weak to other shotguns, but compared to other weapons, it's still very strong. And it does scale well with upgrades. As a medic weapon, I'd put this one either in A or S tier. I guess I'll put it into A tier right now because I don't always take it. I don't think it's as crazy as something like the heal thrower is, but that's going to the extreme too. I don't know, maybe I'll put it up in the low end of S tier. The medic shotgun's pretty good overall. I really enjoy it. Then we've got the Hemoclobber. The Hemoclobber was changed in this last patch. It now does less healing than it did previously, which makes it kind of not as good on medic, because you can still heal yourself and heal allies and defend yourself pretty well with it. It's a great defensive weapon, and it only weighs 4, so it's very easy to put on most loadouts. But with it not healing as much, that was really the main reason why you would take it with medic, or if you just wanted to play tank as medic. And you can still do that with it. It's still a good weapon to be tanking with, but it's just kind of okay now. It used to be much better, and even then I didn't use it a whole ton, because you do need to get close and you do need to be using melee, and melee is slower on medic because you have no increased attack speed with it. So like right now it's probably B tier-ish for medic. Still, it's a good melee weapon, and it can deal AoE damage to enemies as well as heal allies. So it's always going to be useful, but it's not going to be as useful as it once was, at least not on medic. It's still really strong on Berserker and Survivalist. Then we've got our Medic 401 Assault Rifle. Very strong assault rifle, does good damage, it has a pretty good rate of fire, pretty easy to use, fast reload, scales well with upgrades, and healing darts are quite good. I'd put this one up in A tier. It's fantastic. It's probably on the same level as the Medic Shotgun, to be honest. They're both really good, and they're both really good in combination, as well as they're both really good with the heal thrower. I don't know, maybe I'll move the Medic Shotgun down. It's really hard to move some of these weapons around, because if I want to compare them to other weapons, yeah, they're going to do less than that, but that's the point of medic weapons, is they do less, but they give you more utility. Medic is all about utility, so I don't know. These two are about on the same level, A or S tier, somewhere around there. Then we've got our new weapon, which is the Corrupter Carbine. And this weighs 7. It does pretty high damage. It can shoot pretty quick. It can reload pretty fast. It does reload all of its magazine at once. Its secondary fire is very interesting, where if you hit allies with it, it will heal them as well as anybody around them that's at least fairly close. And if you shoot an enemy with this, then it sticks a parasite in them, I guess, that once that enemy is killed, whether it's by you or by somebody else, it explodes out, dealing damage to all enemies nearby and healing all allies nearby. This is pretty good. It's honestly really strong. It does a lot of damage. It has arguably the hardest to use healing out of any of the medic weapons, though. So it might not be a fantastic weapon for inexperienced medics or people that just don't have great aim, as well as the projectile of the parasite, the secondary fire of this, is much slower than you'd expect. You have to lead your shot quite a bit, but it's still really strong in terms of a weapon. So I don't know where to put this. Maybe on the lower end of A tier, because I still think that it's strong enough to be useful in pretty much every situation, and it's light enough weight to also be used with pretty much all of your weapons. So it has that going for it, as well as it does give you a very effective long-range shot, but the heals are a little bit less consistent. Maybe I'd actually put this one into B tier for medic. It's still good, but there's extra steps that need to be taken to make it good. So if you have good accuracy, if you play like sharpshooter a lot, especially with this weapon, then this weapon is probably A or S tier for you. But for the average medic, I think it's going to be a little bit less, because it's more frustrating to use than most of their other weapons. It's far easier to just grab like the medic AR and be killing small enemies and then shooting the healing darts normally than it is to kind of learn the Corrupter Carbine. So I guess I'd put it here. The HRG Incision is an easier to use version of the Corrupter Carbine in a way. It has less follow-up because it's only a single shot and then you have to reload. It does do the EMP effect on the shots, which is really nice. Its secondary fire is rather unique, where its healing darts can actually deal pretty high damage to enemies, as well as they can punch through enemies to heal allies. That is really nice, and I think I'd put this one a little bit higher than the Corrupter Carbine, probably an A tier, just because it is more user-friendly than the Corruptor is. You can actually use them both in combination if you would like, and they work pretty well. The Vampire is a pretty solid weapon. It's actually much better a weapon than it is necessarily a medic tool, because the only way that you can really heal with this is by getting the blood ball. To get that, you have to suction out the blood from all enemies nearby. Well, not necessarily all of them, but whatever's near you, and create the blood ball and then shoot the blood ball that has to hit an ally so that it explodes and then heals them as well as everybody else. There's additional steps that need to be taken. Now, as a weapon, it's pretty good because it will apply the bleeding status effect to them, which means that they're going to be slower and that they're not going to be able to hit you as hard when you're sucking the blood out of them. You can also shoot the blood ball at them and cause it to explode to deal damage, which is nice. And then its secondary fire fires out the crystal spikes, which do really high damage and can pierce multiple enemies. You only get 5 of them in total, though, because it has to charge this up from the blood that you're taking, which the maximum charge is 100, and each shot takes 20. So you will run through blood spikes pretty fast, but they are very deadly towards pretty much everything that you're hitting. They deal a ton of damage. So this one's another really weird one that I think I'm probably going to put into B tier, because as a weapon, it's pretty solid. As a supportive medic weapon to heal the team with, it's kind of lacking unless you're on a small map. If you're on a small map, then you can use this pretty well. If you're on like a holdout map where there's tight choke points, there's limited areas where your team can move around, it's useful then because it's easier to hit the blood ball. If you're on a larger map, it's going to be much more difficult to use this, even though the blood spikes will still be pretty good at long range. Then we've got the Mine Reconstructor, which used to be kind of a meme weapon. This one actually got changed recently too, to where it does heal quite a bit more. It still does pretty good damage, and this weapon is better than it once was. It's still a situational weapon though, where you have to charge up the goo balls, shoot them on the ground, and then either allies or enemies have to walk through them to trigger them. If allies walk through them, they get healed and deal damage to all nearby enemies. If enemies run by them, they explode, dealing damage to them and dealing damage to all other enemies, as well as healing all allies. So this one takes time to set up, but it can be really good in holdout maps. So if you have a particular location that you're holding out on, you can put down a bunch of goo balls just laying around the map, and your teammates can use them when circling around to step in them to heal themselves, or Zeds might run into them, dealing damage to themselves. So you can get a lot of value out of this weapon now. It's still fairly situational though, so I still think I'd put this one in C tier. The Hemogoblin's up next, and the Hemogoblin is pretty good. It does good damage per shot. It now has a pretty fast reload from the last patch updated, which is nice. It applies the bleeding status effect to enemies, which makes it so they take damage over time, as well as it slows them down, and they cannot do as much damage to you or any allies when they are bleeding. This also has better healing darts than most of the other weapons, which is nice, and it still weighs a decent amount so you can carry it around. This one's all around a really solid weapon. It's really good in boss wave, and it's probably one of Medic's best weapons if you want to be supporting with it. As a weapon itself, it's still pretty good because it does high enough damage with each of the syringes, but it also does the damage over time effect and applies the bleeding status effect, so you can usually outmaneuver and outrun anything that's going to be coming your way. And just not taking big hits from flesh pounds, scrags, bosses is really nice. I would put this one up into S tier as well. And then we've got the Medic 501 Grenade Assault Rifle, which this one is pretty good too. Mostly because it's a Medic Grenade launcher and you get all the bonuses from Medic Grenades, and you get more Medic Grenades than you normally would have. The Assault Rifle on it is pretty meh. It's nothing really all that special. Low rate of fire. Kind of high recoil for how slow it's shooting and seemingly how small the bullets are you're firing from it. But enough damage to kill small and medium enemies quickly, and that Medic Grenade launcher is really what puts it ahead. I'd put this one up into A tier. It's all around a pretty solid weapon, and I think this is where I'd put all of Medic's weapons. It's kind of hard to actually rate a lot of these weapons because they're all good and they're all viable. Maybe not to everybody or to every situation, but there is situations where you could definitely justify taking any one of these or any one of these in combination with another one. So we're going to be doing more of these tier lists too. We still need to do Berserker, Gunslinger, and Sharpshooter, which were affected by this patch, as well as SWAT, which was affected by last patch, but I just forgot to cover them. So look forward to that. If you guys are new here, be sure that you get subscribed. That way you get notifications whenever I post these videos. Special thanks to my supporters, the members over here on YouTube, as well as the patrons over on Patreon. I really do appreciate that. And if you would like to be a part of that, be sure to check out the links in the description. You can join either of those, and you get early access to videos like this. Thanks everybody who does that. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!